Welcome to another show of Valdestott's Voice, and I'm your host, Valdestott. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about something that is actually very important to gig drivers, whether it's DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, Postmates, or any other gig driver. But there's a catch. It's only going to be in New York City, possibly for the time being. And this story was from CNBC. Is this a step in the right direction for gig drivers? That's the question. Because take a look at these headlines, people. New York City passes bills offering protections to food delivery workers. And this is from just a few hours ago. Okay? Breaking news. Key points. New York City passed measures to improve working conditions and set minimum pay for people who deliver for companies like Grubhub, DoorDash, and Uber Eats. The move makes New York City the first to pass sweeping legislation that regulates the delivery industry, which has come under increased scrutiny during the pandemic. And here is the story, folks. Lawmakers in New York City passed several bills on Thursday that seek to improve working conditions and set minimum pay for food delivery workers for companies like Grubhub, DoorDash, and Uber Eats. The move makes New York City the first to pass sweeping legislation that regulates the delivery industry, which has come under increased scrutiny during the pandemic and in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. Here are some of the protections in the bills that delivery services will need to abide by. Drivers can set a maximum distance per trip they travel. Food delivery apps can't charge couriers for payment of their wages, and they have to pay delivery workers at least once a week. Drivers can choose not to accept trips over bridges or in tunnels. Apps need to provide the driver, before a trip begins, with the food pickup location, the destination, and the estimated time and distance. Delivery services can't charge drivers or couriers for insulated bags to deliver food. Food delivery apps can't solicit a tip unless they disclose how much is paid to the delivery worker and whether or not it's available immediately or paid in cash. Apps have to credit gratuities to workers and notify how much was added and if a customer removed the tip and why. Applications have to inform the delivery worker of the total compensation, including gratuities, daily. And finally, food delivery services need to add a provision in contracts with restaurants that let couriers use bathrooms if the courier is picking up a delivery. This is all common sense stuff, folks. This should have already happened anyway. But since we've been years in the making of working for these companies, it still hasn't been fully implemented or at all. So, continuing on with the story, one bill requires the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection to complete a study on food delivery workers and establish rules on the minimum payment required per trip. Quote, "We recognize the unique challenges facing delivery workers in New York City and share the goal of identifying policies that will help Dashers and workers like them," end quote, a DoorDash spokesman said. Quote, "We will continue to work with all stakeholders, including the City Council, to identify ways to support all delivery workers in New York City without unintended consequences," end quote. Yeah, that's kind of like a threat. Grubhub said it supports the bills. Quote, "These bills are common sense steps to support the delivery workers who work hard every day for New York's restaurants and residents," end quote. Grubhub spokesperson Grant Klinsman told CNBC, quote, "Ensuring they receive a living wage and have access to restrooms isn't just a good idea, it's the right thing to do," end quote. Well, at least Grubhub's on board, unlike the DoorDash spokesperson. Lawmakers in other states have also tried to protect gig workers and customers. last month, a California court ruled that Prop 22, a measure approved by a majority vote in November that exempted gig workers from state labor law, was unconstitutional. Prop 22 proposed that workers for app-based food delivery and ride-sharing companies should remain contractors and be entitled to certain benefits and protections like minimum earnings. In August, Chicago filed suits against Doordash and Grubhub for allegedly using unfair business practices and deceiving customers. Both companies called the suits, quote, baseless. Meanwhile, Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub recently sued New York City over a bill that limits how much the companies can charge restaurants. In July, DoorDash and Grubhub sued San Francisco after the city introduced a permanent 15% delivery fee cap. And DoorDash filed a separate suit against New York City earlier this month over a law that requires delivery companies to share more customer data with restaurants. An Uber spokesperson was not immediately available for comment. So here's my take on all this. All right, you just heard the entire story, okay, and I tried to read it quickly. But in my opinion, this is all stuff, as I said earlier, that should have already been done to protect the drivers and to make things more fair for drivers. But obviously, since they deem us independent contractors but don't treat us like them, they treat us more like employees, as I've always said, right? They don't care about us. We are the last things on their minds. Their primary thing is to make profits for their shareholders and increase their stock prices. That's it. Secondly, make money for themselves in the corporate hierarchy, like the CEO, presidents, vice presidents, all that. The people that matter in their mind. So the drivers and restaurants and customers are always dead last. Finally, some city like New York City is stepping up, seeing that, you know what these gig apps are doing and treating drivers are wrong. And I know Pete from Pay to Drive lives in New York City, so he probably is going to be doing a video on this. I'm pretty sure, since it's in his neck of the woods. But yeah, this has been a long time coming, people. We really need to push hard on this. Now, this is just one city in countless cities in the various states in the country. This is going to be fought hard from the gig apps. Guaranteed. They fought hard on Prop 22 in California. They're going to fight this too, because if they lose on this, then the next city is going to catch on to this, and they're going to fight for it too. And then it's going to spread like wildfire. And you know, these corporations, they're going to try to nip this in the bud as fast as possible. It's their MO. They just want to protect their bottom line. They don't want to lose their profits. Just the way it is. So what do you all think, people? Is it time drivers finally got these protections? We're still independent contractors. We're not. New York City never said anything about making us into employees. These are just things that have to be, as they said in the article, be written into contracts, either by the restaurants or to drivers. Or fundamental changes like my idea of a slider back in the day to set max and minimum limits to the distance you're willing to drive, so you won't be inundated with these crap offers that you will reject anyway. It's one level of control that will be removed, especially from DoorDash. And you know DoorDash, they don't want to lose control. These things have to happen because we are independent contractors. We are not employees, nor do I want to become an employee. But we have to get our rights as independent contractors back. And this, in my opinion, is the best step that New York City can be doing for us. So, leave a comment, subscribe, like, whatever you want to do, and share your thoughts. Is this a good thing, or is this not a good thing, what New York City is trying to do for us? Take care, everyone, and have a great night.